I guess
thought you were gonna like build a fence next to your neighbor or something.
No, I don't.
Oh, your innocent, naive perspective. No, it's more intense.
No, I don't like messing
be a
around with
lawyer.
that stuff because you don't want to mess with when people get in property disputes with their neighbors. It's like, do you really want this? Like every day of your life, you're gonna have to wake up and deal with the asshole that you may have helped create. Like those are the types of disputes you should try as hard as you can and not have a lawyer come into it. Because once you do, they're done. Like they're not going to talk to you. You know, your mail is going to get left in the snow. Like they're going to just walk by your mailbox like, oops, just tip it out into the snow. Your mailman screwed up. They'll plow their driveway and just leave a big pile in front of yours. And, you know, you don't want to mess with that shit.
You just brought up like the impetus to one of the scarier shootings we've ever seen. You might know.
That was awful. I know.
We've all seen the clip here. We watched it on the show. It's so hard to watch, but essentially neighbor had been piling their snow up, shoveling their own driveway out into the other guy's like drive, and the offending party and his wife are out there screaming at this guy. Guy goes back in the house, gets a gun, and long story short, he kills them both. He kills them both in the street over that.
And it was
snow.
It was not quick, and it was not like clean and pretty. It was not just like blam blam.
Yeah,
it was rough. That's a hard video to watch, man. I hate watching that.
If I recall that video, like after he murdered them, he like went back in his house like he'd just taken trash out. Like not even like I gotta get inside. Like just kind of walking back inside.
So. I think he's.
I hope I didn't want miss more than the commercial break.
He kept saying, "You should have kept fucking with me. You should have kept fucking with me." Yeah, like several times, and it's like, God damn.
Yeah, because she was still alive for a while. Like the woman was still alive for a bit, and he had to go like get a second gun. I think
he went and got a different gun. He started with a handgun. And he went back and got a rifle and finished them both off with a rifle. You see him basically put the rifle to her face by the end.
That's a horrifying video.
Ghoulish. Yeah.
Like I can watch a lot of bullshit, but it's like when
shovel
you
your
see
snow.
Yeah.
Shovel your snow, people. That's the lesson here.
Shovel your snow, assholes.
What was the fight about? Why did he shoot him?
They had TP'd his house.
They shoveled their driveway snow into his.
Into his driveway,
yeah.
Which is rude.
It's very rude.
You can't be doing stuff like that. But also in that video, I didn't see a big giant pile of snow in front there. It looked just as much like the guy who was driving by doing the pusher.
Much history. There was so much history there. Like
that wasn't their first bickering.
Yeah, there was so much history. No, I agree with you so much about like you can't have like a neighbor that you're in a dispute with. We gotta solve this. If you take the L and then bake cookies, dude. Like you're gonna need that guy to pick up a package or to fucking call it. He's gonna be the one that watches your house burn down, right? Like he's gonna be the one to not
drink the match in his hand.
Oh, looks like, hey, honey, look, Taylor's house is burning to the ground. What? Taylor's house is burning to the ground. Look. Oh, no way. And
he's like out in his like yard. He's the first one to know. He's like, help.
He's spraying his own lawn with a hose to make sure that it doesn't get scorched. Like that's all he's doing.
What are you doing? I'm on Ash Watch just in case they float over.
Yeah, just in case they float on Ash Watch.
You want to be friends with that guy. Yeah, that's the guy you need to do you a favor every now and then, right?
I've never had a dispute with a neighbor at all. Right. Like the only thing I could possibly think of, I did think about this the other day, is the neighbor on one of my sides in my like all my neighbors are in their 50s. So like I feel weird like talking to them like I don't know. Like neighbors. It feels bizarre.
Oh, you don't feel like you're their peer.
I don't feel like I'm a real adult because I'm the youngest. I'm like, I live near a bunch of boomers for the most part, but they have a tree that is looming over my sunroom, like from their yard, kind of like that. And I was thinking just the other day, because I just paid to have a bunch of my trees removed. I'm like, what do I even do? Like, do I go over there and say like, hey, your tree is looming over my house. Could you take care of that? And then they'll probably say no. And I'll go, okay. Like what? Do
you mind if I take care of that?
Yes. Tell me
the follow up. Trees. So tree law is actually a specific piece of law that exists. And
is he bullied by the other attorneys?
You need him,
dude.
I specialize in bird law.
Yeah.
No, he looks like the brawny man. He's got fucking big beard and an axe thrown over his shoulder.
Yeah, well, I want to know about tree law.
Here's the thing with tree law. Okay, so a tree is a piece of property, and some people really like their trees, right? So let's say you go to your neighbor's property and you just like it's blocking your view of the lake, and you're like, "Fuck this tree." Let's say it's a 120-year-old oak tree. So you just and chop that down. Don't even ask any questions. You go back inside. You say, "Shouldn't have done that," right? And and then they're like, they sue you. What happens now is that you lose because you didn't have permission to fuck with their tree. It's clearly on their property. All the facts are in their favor. So you lose that case. Now you have to replace a 120-year-old oak tree. You don't replace a 120-year-old oak tree with a new oak tree. You have to get yourself a 120-year-old oak tree, or you have to come up with the financial compensation for it. Do you know how much that fucking costs?
I can't imagine.
To get a 120-year-old tree.
There's a guy who evaluates that.
Just scoop it out and put it back in the yard.
Bring it on a truck because it's not in the same town as you. And yeah, you got to bury it. And then in Minnesota, if that happens, you get triple damages on it too. So I mean, you're talking cutting down a tree like that. You're in like a $250,000 proposition on damages that you end up paying.
You know what the most famous case of that has to be? That thing with Alabama and Auburn, right? Where the guy, I want to say an Auburn fan goes on like Auburn fan radio down there, you know, good old boys radio. And he's like, "Oh, they think it's funny, huh? They think it's funny to make fun of the Auburn Bulldog," or whatever they are. Well, I tell you what I did. I went up there the other day and I poisoned the red oak tree. And they've got some sort of like ancient old oak tree that's like Alabama's tree. I went up there and I poisoned it. And the guy on the radio is like, you killed the tree? Well, it ain't dead yet, but it will be. And and sure enough, like, I don't remember exactly what he done, but he like drilled holes into this tree and introduced poison or something. And he killed this
What an asshole.
Dude, it's ruined his life because they found him, of course.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's just denied it. He's like, "I said that, but I did not poison that tree."
I did not have sex with that tree. Not a single time. Didn't do it.
I think there's an ESPN like 30 for 30 about this shit. It's ridiculous, the drama that went down over the tree. But dude, you can't replace that. I mean, I guess you can, like you described, but that's incredibly costly. It really is tens and tens of thousands of dollars. It has to be
so much. Like, but what would happen? But if like a storm came through and knocked their tree onto my house, they would have to, because it's their property. That's their fucking problem, right? Potentially, yeah.
I mean, it always gets complicated, and it's going to be different state by state. And so this is why that specialty is important, because in one state you might have a duty to prune the tree above your own house just to the property line, right? Like, so you can't chop down their tree, but you might have to cut the branch that's looming over your house that poses a danger. In another state, you might not be able to do that. You might have to ask them permission to do it, or they might have a duty to do it. So you really got to kind of get into on a state-by-state basis who has to do this or not. But that's why you always want to check with a competent lawyer in the field of law in your jurisdiction. Of course, the stupid lawyer caveat, but there's a reason for it. And it's because it's different place to place. In Minnesota, triple damages on chopping down a tree. In another state, you might not get triple damages. It might just be single. In a different state, damages may be calculated differently. It might not have to replace it with another tree. You might have to replace it with some comparably aged tree, but it doesn't have to be the same thing or whatever. So
I just need to look up Missouri tree law.
Growing up, I had my dad had two neighbors that hated each other. These were next door neighbor farmers. So we're not just talking about adjoining quarter acre lots. We're talking about adjoining property lines that extend for a couple miles of walking. If you're doing a straight line around a whole property, the way it adjoins 100-acre properties that adjoin. One guy's dogs that apparently chased the other guy's livestock, exhausting and killing it thereby. He felt like he was owed restitution for these dead calves. The other guy's telling him to go fuck himself. So now we hate each other, and there's like thousands of dollars on the ground burnt, essentially, as far as one guy's concerned. And so the other guy, he's like, yeah, he sneaks over here at night, I think. He steals the pins out of my tractors because they like little things go missing around his farm that are like little pins on your tractors. Like, what do you do now? Go to the John Deere store? Like, we can't work today? Like it would be a problem if you took all the pins out of somebody's tractor who needed to do work.
Yeah.
And then my cousin worked for Levi, the man who kept losing the pins to his tractors. And there came a day where he's like, yeah, spray the all the weeds with Roundup, kill all of that over there. And Scott's like, well, what about over there when I get next to Calvin's place? He's like, put it on full blast and kill everything that you can reach over that property line. If you can hit it with that, kill it. He's just killing 12 feet over the property line. It's dead.
Like, what a douchebag.
The littlest, anything they could do back and forth to like if you could dump a pile of shit onto the other guy's property or anything, if you're going to cut a tree down. They had that property line redrawn by various experts who used varying techniques from multiple times. It's like, no, this guy's bringing the fucking laser in.
Well, because the title of that property, the title search on it, it's 14 feet away from the old fence that runs down perpendicular to the creek.
Walk until you hear the bees.
Yeah. Like, you look at some of these things that happened with my wife's grandpa out here owns this. He owned their family farm, which they didn't farm it, but it was an old farm site. And like the deed to this thing was written in fucking Aramaic or whatever. And so they're talking about these reference points that don't exist.
Yeah.
And so they had to go find a guy to solve a property dispute. This guy is 89 years old and he remembers when they wrote it. And he's like, yeah, that's the fence that we used to climb as kids. It was right around here between this tree and this tree. It's like, oh, Jesus, this is what you're relying on. This is how you're drawing property lines.
With an elderly man.
Those old farm properties are like that, though, because they typically stick around, passed down for generations.
A lot of metal pins.
Yeah.
like down here, when I would walk through the woods hunting and stuff, in particular around property lines that maybe didn't even exist anymore, you'd find those pins in the ground sometimes.
Yeah.
And also Indian burial sites. We would find that every now and then, stuff like that.